Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. Today we are continuing our lecture series on Dhamma Vinicchaya. 100 questions, topics discussed by Most Venerable late Rerukani Chandravimala Mahathera. The today's topic is, I hope everyone got the handout, and it's appreciated if it can be shared in the chat box as well. The question is, if volition, Chetana itself is wholesome, is the wholesome deed actually, then is it not sufficient to merely generate volition without making any effort or spending any material to do wholesome deeds? So if, for instance, now Buddha has clearly mentioned that Chetana itself is the wholesome or unwholesome deed, which we call the karma. If Chetana is the karma, since Chetana is a mental factor which arises in the mind, can't we just accumulate the karma of making donations or whatever it is by just having the thought or having a volition or intention of doing so? It is a valid question, but the question comes with partial understanding. That's what the Mahathera also has said. This question arises due to not comprehending or understanding the Chetana properly. When we try to define Chetana partially and try to apply it in other contexts, then this question might arise in some people. The thing is, the famous teaching given by the Buddha is Chetanaham bhikkhave kammang vadami. Chetanaham bhikkhave kammang vadami. He says, I tell monks, I preach, I expound that the Chetana itself is the karma. So this equates Chetana with the karma. And it's identical, completely the same. Then what happens? We have to define, in order to understand the karma, we have to define Chetana. That's the point here. Then what is Chetana? Karma is good or bad activities, and Chetana is the good or bad activities, or the good or bad activities. So how should we define Chetana? The definition of Chetana is important. Normal translation would be volition, or the intention to do something. But this doesn't encompasses the entire scope of Chetana. That's the point here. If we explain Chetana deeply, based on the Theravada doctrine, Chetana should be regarded as a force, a mental force which executes the activities, verbal, physical, and mental activities. This force, the Chetana, does mainly 4 acts. So first 3 can be categorized based on the karma. It does bodily activities, verbal activities, and mental activities. Bodily activities such as making offerings, harming other beings, verbal activities such as accusing, preaching Dharma, and so forth. Mental activities, the best example would be meditation, contemplation, spreading loving kindness, or developing a wrong view. These are the mental activities. Then there is another very basic type of a mental activity, which we don't, because these are the scope of the karmas, and which we call the cognition. Cognition. For some, this may be a new word because it's sort of it's very aligned with the philosophy and science. Cognition means knowing a certain object, knowing an object, cognizing an object. Every consciousness knows an object, cognizes an object. In order to do that, for the consciousness to do a cognition. Cognition means being aware of a certain object. But just being aware of a certain object does not suffice the continuation of sunset, because what happens is these nama and rupa processes are there for us to continue living. That's it's sort of, one may call it as a purpose, but I would rather say that's the natural law. That's how it is happening. No one has defined it or set a law for this. That's how it is happening. That's a natural flow of the samsara. For this mind stream and the mental, physical stream to continue from life to life, the mind should take the objects at a certain level. This is now we are heading towards sort of some deep philosophy. An object has to be taken in a certain level. We are able to measure the cognizing capacity of a certain object. Cognizing capacity. These things are not directly addressed in the doctrine, but fossils can be found. The basic example is, some of you may be aware that there is a categorization of 18 elements. 18 elements. Chakku dhatu, sota dhatu, gahana dhatu, the dhatu teachings. So in these dhatu teachings, the element teachings, the doctrine, we have 7 types of consciousnesses. Chakku viññāna, eye consciousness, sota viññāna, ear consciousness, gana viññāna, nose consciousness, jivha viññāna, tongue consciousness, kaya viññāna, body consciousness. Then we have mano dhatu, which we call mental element. Mano dhatu. Mano dhatu. Mind element. Then we have mano viññāna dhatu. Mano viññāna dhatu. This is mind consciousness element. Mind consciousness element. According to Theravada, mano and viññāna are identical. There's no much difference in them. Based on some context, mano can be the bhavanga chitta, while the viññāna can be other consciousnesses. So based on certain contexts, they may refer to certain different realities, but basically we say mind, mano, viññāna, chitta refer to the same thing. That is the consciousness. That's the consciousness. So here, mano viññāna is a repetition. Mind element. Actually, if we translate it in a raw way, it's the consciousness element. So in order to not to make it so weird, normally we render this into English as mind consciousness element. Mano dhatu is the mind element. And we have the 5 types of consciousnesses, which are the sense consciousnesses. I think all of you are aware of that. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, body, tongue, and nose consciousness. So now, why is this difference? Why some consciousnesses are called mind element and while others are called mind consciousness element? The reason is the level of cognition. The level of cognition. Mind element has the least level of cognition. They are just cognizing an object and they do not perform any specific activity of like, for example, deciding on the object or investigating upon the object or having a thorough understanding or a wrong opinion about the object. None of them happens. These happens in the mano dhatu. In the sense consciousnesses, which are the chakku, sota, gana, jivha, kaya viññānas, this 5 sense consciousness, they are having a direct experience with the object because it's seen the color as it is. It's as it is means directly seeing it. Ear consciousness hearing the sounds directly. Likewise, the sense objects are having a direct contact or experience with the sense objects. Unlike the mano dhatu, in terms of Abhidhamma, before the sense consciousness arises, it shifts the mind towards the newly arrived object. And then it retakes the object that was taken by the the sense consciousnesses. Normally in Abhidhamma diagrams, this Panchadvara Vajjana, Chakku Viññāna, and Sampatikkana, SP. Then comes Santirana. Mano dhatu are these 2, which are coming before and after the sense consciousnesses. Chakku Viññāna. Chakku Viññāna. So they are functions are very basic. Their functions are very basic. The other consciousnesses starting from here have sort of advanced functioning compared to these two. So therefore, we can grade the consciousnesses based on his level of cognition. It's a very important fundamental that we find in Theravada, which is not commonly addressed. Commonly addressed. Even it is said in books, sub-commentaries, that these two consciousnesses, which are the mind element, have weaker cognition ability even than the sense object, sense consciousness. Sense consciousness have a higher cognizing capacity. So mind element has a very low cognizing capacity. Then comes the sense consciousnesses. Then the mano vinyana dhatu, mind consciousness element, the remaining all the consciousness. And they also have their own degrees. Now, for instance, the consciousness with wisdom has a higher cognizing capacity than the consciousness without wisdom, and so forth. There are levels. Collectively, now they are categorized into 3 groups. So what I wanted to say was every consciousness has a certain level of cognition, and we grade the consciousnesses based on that level. Therefore, for a cognition to happen, for a very basic level of, even for the very basic level of cognition to happen, there has to be certain elements coming together. Certain mental factors should come together, which we call chetasikas. The mental factors. When the consciousness is cognizing the object, having delimited it and focusing on it, mental factors, some mental factors contact the object, one mental factor tastes the flavor of the object, one mental factor recognizes the object, one mental factor places the entire mental cluster upon one aspect of the object, one mental factor keeps the consciousness alive, so it would continue, and another mental factor is the reason why the consciousness has arisen taking an object. So all these basic mentalities or the mental factors, the mental elements are necessary even for the very lowest cognition, even for the lowest cognition. Now, what Chetana does is, now I went from here to here, I went a bit far away, now I'm reversing back. So what why conscious, what is the connection of Chetana with this? Is Chetana is the mental force which gives the energy, or which makes them active. So the entire mental cluster, like Chitta, consciousness, Vedana, Passa, contact. So these Sanya, recognition, all these mental cluster is active and cognizing the object. In order to do that, there has to be a certain energy. Example is, think about a machine that is working with pistons, air, steam engine, which is very rare these days actually. Now think about a steam engine. Steam engine has many parts. It's functioning. Sometimes it grabs certain thing, it burns the fuel, not fuel, sorry. Sometimes it rolls and makes the horn or whatever. There are certain functions happening in a steam engine. So what is the main core power? Who gives this power for the entire engine or the machine to work? All the machinery is functioning based on one force, and that force is the steam. That is the steam, the hot gas, or the evaporating steam coming from water or whatever. I'm not an expert on this machinery. So whatever that's coming out, a steam or a gas or air, that's the real force which enables the machine to function properly. In the same way, the mental cluster, consciousness and mental factors which are acting together, they are arising as a one unit. For them to function properly, there has to be an energy. And this energy is the Chetana. So even for the least level of cognition, Chetana is required. For instance, imagine this now, if you are seeing an object with your eyes, it's clear, eye consciousness capturing the object, we are seeing it, we are being aware of it. According to Theravada teachings, even at that level, consciousness is capturing the object, phassa, contact, is having a mental contact with the object, it's touching the object, it's a mental contact, not a physical one. Then Vedana, feeling, is tasting the flavor of the object, a slight flavor is felt there. And then Sanya is recognizing to some extent. It may not recognize it as it is or with its name, but there's some sort of a, like, it's becoming sensitive to certain aspects of the object. So likewise, even in this very simple experience of seeing an object, certain mental factors are functioning. Scientifically, people would not agree on this, but even science cannot explain that. That's what is called qualia in Western philosophy. Qualia, how it is felt, And then another word for this, that what we are explaining is propositional attitudes, right? Sort of belief and so forth, right? So the qualia is how it is felt. In Western philosophy, they differentiate these two, but some philosophers are saying every mental attitude has a qualia. Theravada is aligned with that. We have a certain experience, how it is felt, and certain mental functions going on. Just a simple example, when you are eating a very nice ice cream, there is sort of a feeling, how you feel it, which cannot be expressed through words, right? Even how much you write it, you will not be able to express it. You are having a subjective experience about it. And if you have attained a certain higher level of concentration, how it is felt, the peacefulness. If anger has arisen, the tormenting nature, sadness, how it afflicts our mind. So these are subjective experiences. So this is the function. This is how we are feeling these mentalities. So according to science, it's even physics, it's very difficult to explain how this experience can be explained based on particles or subatomic particles and energies. So therefore, in Buddhism, in some philosophies, especially in the Eastern philosophies, we are talking about a consciousness apart from the material thing. Now, in Buddhism, this consciousness is not a single element. It arises and passes away. It is happening in a lineage. And further, this consciousness is not a single element, which is called, it's a bundle of things, which is called a bundle theory in Western philosophy. In Theravada, we are in a bundle dualism theory. That's how we locate it in the entire scope of philosophy. Some may not agree with those things. If someone has some knowledge in Western philosophy, they will agree on that, and also in Theravada. Some may not like that I'm comparing them. It's not just a comparing, I'm just locating it and saying Theravada is a dualist doctrine. We are talking about two different elements. And even consciousness is not a single entity. It's a combination of realities, mind and mental factors. So that Chittupada, the collection, is what we are experiencing. It's a bundle. So that's why the non-self doctrine comes, because it's not a one entity that we experience. It's just a group of entities. The group can never be one. Self is always one thing. So none of these elements in the cluster can be called I. So that's how the non-self doctrine comes in. That's why it was very helpful to me studying the Western philosophy to get more deeper understanding about Buddhist theory. Anyway, that was my personal experience. So now what I was telling was, now in a physical experience, seeing when I consciousness is seeing something, many mental factors, a bundle is functioning, a bundle. So this bundle, mental bundle, I may call it, not a physical thing. In simple terms, consciousness and mental factors chitta and chetasikas are happening here. So they need to function. It's an immaterial functioning going on. As any physical thing to function, there has to be a force. Unless you put a force on something, none of the physical stuff is going to behave spontaneously by its own. That's never going to happen. If for this paper to flow on the air, there has to be a force. Unless there's a force, this will remain as it is. If wind flows, yes, it will flow away. So there has to be a certain force for all the physical activities, and some force has to be used. Some force has to be used, and energy is transferring from one form into another, one form of energy into another. Kinetic energy to while is moving and so forth. So every physical thing, for every physical activity, there has to be a force. And that's applicable in Theravada teaching. That's the same with the mental activities. And who is bringing this force into this mental bundle, mental mind and mental class, this mental cluster? Who gives this force? Who facilitates it? That's Chetana. Chetana is the energy. Therefore, even for the lowest level of cognition, Chetana is necessary. You may not feel it when you are doing Vipassana meditations, and some may ask, how can we experience this? Yes, some things we will never be able to experience. Sometimes it depends on your level of intuition and intellect. For instance, we talk about Bhavanga consciousness, the life continuum. Even some arahants would never experience that, but that doesn't mean even just because you cannot experience something you cannot negate it, right? So therefore, according to the philosophy of Theravada, the teachings of Theravada, the Chetana is the force, mental force, which is required for every cognition. Now, why I was more emphasizing on this, our topic is karma actually. Our topic is karma. Karma is in a higher level. It's in a higher level because bodily activities, you need a lot of energy, mental energy to move the body. You need a lot of mental energy to speak out. You need a lot of mental energy to focus on something, to do meditation, to spread loving kindness. There's a lot of energy going on. It's obviously it's visible or evident to us. Physical energy is necessary, and we have to involve our mind in it. For example, think you are writing something, and a lot of mental energy and physical energy is used to that. Even when you are typing on something, there's a lot of mental energy and physical energy is used. And verbal, while speaking, yes, the same thing. And meditating and thinking about something, or even spreading loving kindness, at some level, the mind gets sort of like it is using some energy. Even you are in a very deep concentration, you comes out of it. There's some sort of mental energy is used. I'm not talking about the energy preservation or any theory on that. But this karmic level, mental, verbal, and physical karmas are requiring higher energies, mental and physical energies, especially mental energies. Now, the basic cognition, just to know something, even for that, energy is required, according to Theravada. So there's nothing to say about physical, verbal, and mental activities. Now, Chetana is the force of the mind which makes this mental cluster, mind and mental factors, to function, to know something, to cognize something, to see something, to think about something, to speak, to act physically. For all these activities, mind is involved. Mind is involved. Now, forget about if something happens naturally or physical things that are happening in the body. Forget about such things. I'm talking about deliberate activities. So for everything, the mind has to be involved. And according to Theravada, it's not just a one element which is acting. It's a bundle, mental cluster. It's a mental cluster. For this mental cluster to function, there has to be an element of energy. And that energy is Chetana. And that energy is Chetana. Now, How do we solve this issue? I'll bring a very short answer. Then I will go into the explanations. Now, how this question can be solved? Some are asking, if Chetana itself is the karma, and if we define Chetana as the volition or intention, okay, intention, can't we just arouse, produce a volition in our mind? Arouse means not in the sensual sense I'm talking. Arouse means make something to arise, is a causative verb. If we are arousing a chetana or a volition or an intention to do something, can't we get the same results of doing a dana? That's the argument. Now I'll simplify it because my sentence was quite long. Now imagine now I'm giving a dana. I'm giving a donation. I spend, for example, a lay person, imagine he's spending his money and accumulating, and he's giving a dana. Can't I just have that similar thought? Okay, I imagine I'm giving, I would like to give a dana. I accumulate things with my mind as the Bodhisattva did in one of his past lives, and I'm making a mental imaginary and think, okay, I'm making an offering. I'm making an offering. I put my whole mind into it, and I'm doing it mentally, arousing that thought of offering, the intention to give, and also in the imaginary sense, I'm giving it as well. You can do that, right? Some people fantasizes having sex with others, fantasizes going to some other place. So they mentally they are doing it, but there's no physical involvement in it. Mentally, you can do that. So likewise, he's giving a dana, which is a good thing. Which we another something I'm deviating from the topic, but still, if you can imagine of such activity, that is a very nice thing. Like I would, if I have money, if I have such things, I will be donating to the sasana, to the beggars, to the poor people. So if you can have that thought, which is a very wholesome thought, normally the bodhisattvas do that because they imagine, okay, if someone comes, how would I do? It's a very good advice that I received when I was a child before my ordination, because I ordained at the age of 19. So I was involved with Sangha by the age of 17. So now in Dhamma Mahatera, my teacher, he once gave me an advice that you have to imagine, will I be able to live with very basic minimum conditions as a monk? If I don't get enough food, if I don't get enough sufficient things, so would I be able to sustain? Fortunately, we normally get the support of devotees very much these days. Personally, I myself get a lot of support. But what his advice was, he himself got a lot of support, but what he said was, you have to prepare yourself even for the worst conditions. There's no devotees, if there's a famine, if there's no food, would you still be able to adhere to the monk's qualities and live a monk life without breaking the precepts, even by just having very minimum basic food? So he asked me to imagine this. If there's no kuti, yeah, would you be able to live under a tree, which is a difficult task? If there's no option, we have to adapt it. That's how we were taught in the beginning, in the Upasampada. So if you're lucky, you will get the support of many devotees, but otherwise you have to spend it. Would you still remain as a monk under a tree without going back to the lay life? Because sometimes when the hardship is too much, we feel, okay, it's better to live a lay life, make my own earnings, and live a comfortable life, and also keep on doing wholesome deeds. That's another good option. So would you be able to make such a decision that will not disrobe under any condition or any circumstance? So he asked me to think about it, to prepare your mind for that. That's also very nice if we can imagine on this. Okay, I will make such donations. If you may get money or not, that's a different case. But you're prepared. If I get such earnings, I will make some. So it will create a lot of wholesome thoughts in you, and it will prepare yourself for the donation. That's what sometimes Bodhisattvas does. He imagines, he thinks, if someone comes, I'm willing to give. It's not that the Bodhisattva is always ready to donate body parts, which is not an easy thing. He has done in certain life, not in every life, but he has to prepare himself for that. So it's another very good thing that if you can imagine about your wholesome deeds. Some people have the habit of fantasizing sensuality. That's the natural thing, tendency that goes in minds. Some people fantasizes sensuality. Only when you are spiritually developed, you feel that those fantasizing is not worthy of spending time, and you start to feel it as something really disturbing. But instead of that, if you can apply this to wholesome side and think about it, we may not call it fantasizing, we may call it imagining something. Which is a good thing. Now, just there's no argument that it's a good thing, but the question is, by doing so, I'm coming back to the lecture again, the topic. Now, someone is making a donation, and I imagine this thing, and imagine that I'm giving a donation, and can't I get the same merits as he does or she does? What is the argument? The person who is making the donation is doing it physically, but according to the Buddha's teaching, it is volition that is the karma. It's neither the body, neither the hand, neither the gift. None of them. It's the volition. So can't I have that volition in me without using my body parts or without spending my money or my requisites? Can't I have that same force or volition in me, intention, and imagine about a donation? Can't I get the same merit? I should be getting the same merit. That's the argument here. That's the question here. So how do we answer this question? Now, based on this force theory, now this is the what is Chetana? I'm not going to translate it as volition. I'm going to define it as a force. It's not I who do it. That's how it's explained in the doctrine. It's called Chitta Payoga. The force of the mind, the effort of the mind to do certain acts. So there are two types of activities. Cognition, the very basic, even for the very basic cognition, you need such a force. For the karmas, you need, there's no argument. Karma is a force is necessary. Now, this is the point. The argument is, one is making a donation. Yes, volition is there. Can't I have, and volition is the karma. Can't I have that same volition without doing anything physical? Without making any actual donation? Can't I arouse that same volition and accumulate the same karma? That's the argument. Now, how do we answer a short answer, very short, solid answer to this question? Now, it's about the force. Chetana is the force. Now, when the person is making the donation, think he's using his body, he's spending his money, he's mentally involved into it. It needs a lot of mental force. For dana to be accomplished, there has to be some physical activities done. Physical activities has to be done. For that, you need that much of force. You need that much of force. And that force is moving the body, spending the money. In order to spend money to give up, you have to have a lot of force. Obviously, you're giving up. It's a mental activity, giving up. Even the body is used, you have to give up the expectation, which needs a lot of mental force. So in order to do such thing, there has to be a certain mental force. And that mental force, that actually the Chetana comes into that level and it does all this stuff. The thing is, if you are just arousing the thoughts without moving the body parts and making the sacrifice, that Chetana would never be equal to that force. It would never be equal to that force. Because if that force, even while I'm thinking, there is a Chetana arising, imaginary dana, right? At that time, Chetana is arising. There is a certain force, obviously. But that force is never equal to the first type of force. Because in that force, you are doing all this stuff. So that force was utilized to all these activities. do, to give up and all this. That's how the karma is. That is a dana karma which is followed. And if someone is cleaning the Buddha's shrine or a monastery, that also needs a force, but that force is doing some different stuff. The person who is just imagining, he also has some force, wholesome thing, okay, but that force is never equal. It's not like you have that equal force, but body is not moving. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. If the Chetana comes to that exact level of the force, while as it is while giving dana, making a donation, the body has to move. The money has to be given up. And if that force, which the person arousing, comes to that level, it means the physical activities also has to happen at that moment. It's not that that force is stored like in a battery and nothing has happened. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So therefore, when person is just arousing a thought of force, Chetana is the force of giving, that force would never be equal with the force of the mind that happens or that functions while making the donation, while giving up the money and doing all the arrangements and making the offering. Even if you are making the transaction with just some messages or whatever through the phone or through digital thing, or if you're just making an order to someone or instructing someone do this and stuff, still that involvement is there. Especially you're giving up your money, you're giving up your stuff, that needs a lot of mental force. That's very important. So that Chetana is not giving up anything, not real substantial stuff, and not making any effort. You're just imagining. So the mental forces are different. So imagining person is accumulating karma. That's true. There's no argument in it. But that would never be equal to the force or the karma while someone is making an actual donation. That's the point here. So it will never be equal. So in the first scenario, he's making the donation. He's preparing and he's giving it. The second person is just thinking. He has nothing. He's not giving up anything. He's just thinking. There should be a force, F1, to donate, F2 for thinking. What happens is, in terms of karma, I'm not talking about meditation or the samadhi of that consciousness. Was it, if Arahant thought like that, those things are irrelevant here. Not about the quality of the force. We're talking about the level of the force in terms of dana. So we have to define based on the karma. So in terms of dana, in terms of the karma, F1 will always be larger than F2. F1 is always larger or higher than F2. Therefore, now we have to come. It's a very interesting topic now. Why this became always larger? Why did it become always larger? Now, is it just because you are making the, now F1, now think about this F1. I'm now, for example, offering something, some valuable jewelry box, okay? Think about offering a jewelry box to the poor people, something very valuable which you got from your parents or something. And you lift it and give it to them. Call them, you pick and give it to them. And now the thinking person, okay, he makes more effort. For example, he's lifting a much larger box. Lifting a much larger box. He's not actually giving, but he's thinking about something. Think about now. He imagines, so this is the this is my jewelry box, which doesn't have jewelry at all. But he's imagining I'm putting jewelry into it, and he's doing more effort to that. And maybe he calls someone, okay, to replicate the beggars or the poor people, and he's thinking that I'm offering this jewelry to these people, and he offers that. Sometimes imagine he's making more physical effort than the F1 person. F2, just thinking, he's doing all this physical stuff. He's doing all this physical stuff. So we'll go to a new diagram. Now, if one person, he does this, okay, this is the physical activities he did, and he donated something, okay, gave, and this is the F1 first person, and the second person is making more effort. He's cleaning, he's arranging, he's lifting a much heavier box. In terms of physicality, he's making more effort, and he's also just as a gesture, he's giving, or just moving a much larger box, for example. It's not a real thing. There's no jewelry in it. But now he made more physical effort. Here he's making less physical effort. Now what we are saying is F1 and F2. Right? According to what I said, F1 is always bigger than F2. Now, even if he's making more physical activities, as he's duplicating what is a donation, which is not a real donation, now he's making more physical. Now, someone can argue this F1 is bigger than F2 because there's more effort involved, there's more physicality involved in it. Physical effort, he's just making things, he's just sitting and thinking. Now, I made the scenario more complex. Imagine he's making physical effort, actual physical effort. Actual means he's lifting a bigger object, he's cleaning the area, he also calls someone as a representation, and he cleaned and he prepared it, and he's making everything like he's making a donation. But in the end, he's not offering a jewelry. He imagines there's jewelry in it, and he's doing a gesture like offering. So he has done more physical stuff than the first person. So in such a scenario, is it still, now who is bigger? Now he has done more physical stuff than this person. So if we say, if we are to say that F1 is bigger than F2 because of the physical activities, then in this scenario, F2 must be bigger than F1. So that's the theory. F2 must be larger than F1. But still, F1 is bigger than F2. What is missing here? What is missing here? Here, there's actually jewelry. Okay, imagine the second person also have much jewelry in it. There's more jewelry in that box. And he's thinking that he's donating. But he's not actually donating. Imagine, there's actual jewelry. Here also there's actual jewelry. But still F1 is bigger than F2. What is the reason? The point here is, in F1, we have an extra element of giving up. Actually giving up. It is not found here. The level of the strength of the Chetana is basically decided on this context. Don't compare with other contexts. Don't compare with meditation here. No, you cannot do that. You have to fix to a certain karma here. The actual missing element here is F1 is giving up that jewelry. In H2, the giving up element is missing. The giving up element is missing. Therefore, when you are giving up a dana, when you are making a dana, all the physical activities are necessary to perform that dana, but the actual real force depends on your giving up. The detachment. Detachment is another element. It's alobha. detachment. You need detachment to give up. But the act of giving up, giving the ownership, relinquishing the ownership, thinking, okay, you can use it as you like. Or maybe sometimes you may have a desire. Don't give it to someone. I like you to use it. Still it's a giving up. But you're giving up the ownership you had towards that object. That's the energy here. That's the energy. Now take this example about Sila. Not killing animals is a Sila, and killing animals is an Akusala. Oh, imagine now, think this way. Now, not speaking harsh words is a Sila. Speaking harsh words is an Akusala. Now, in order to speak a harsh word, you need some mental strength. Obviously, otherwise you cannot speak out. And when someone hits you or blames you, if you keep your mind, if you tolerate and say, no, I'm not going to speak any harsh words. If you tolerate it, for that even you need mental strength. For which activity you need more mental strength? Is it just to unleash your anger and say it out, speak it out, or to tolerate and to protect the Sila? I think most of you, I think all of you would agree, many people would agree, you need more mental strength for patience, not to express the feelings, to keep it and to protect and adhere to the rule. So Chetana is not only about executing activities. It's not only about executing activity. You need a stronger Chetana to not do certain activity, to abstain from certain activity. While it's tempting me. He told me this and I should be replying with a harsher word. Yes, you need more. You need energy for that. You need thinking for that. You need to exactly hit the point and hurt the person. That's how anger works. More you hurt, more the person is satisfied. That's how it works. But you need more energy to take the blame, to take the harsh word, take the shock, like a shock absorber, and absorb it, and without putting anything bad out. You need more strength for that. You need more endurance for that. That's a strong mind. So, Chetana, when I say force, it's not only about doing activities. It's also not doing the bad stuff. In the same way, now I hope it was clear with the analogy of Sila. Now here, Chetana, you are giving it. Here also he is making a gesture physically, but he's giving up. That's the point here. It's not about physically giving, it's about giving up. Sometimes we give our jewelry to people to look at it. We just make it, okay, look at it, everyone is looking at, and we show. Sometimes we show our class or our status with the jewelry. Okay, we like when they are admiring it. We send it from hand to hand. Okay, but still, I keep my ownership on that. So even I'm giving it, physically giving it to someone, it is not a donation. How it becomes a donation? Only when you give up the ownership. That energy is required. Therefore, even on a dana contest of dana, the physical activities, verbal activities are there. If that giving up force is missing, that would never be a dana. And it will always be lower than actual donation. So that's how we solve this issue. Since one is not actually giving up anything, no, one cannot just do merits or dana just by imagining of a donation. It's a wholesome deed. It's a wholesome thought. No argument in it. But you cannot get the equal results. by just thinking. That's the point here. Now we'll go into the Mahathera's handout. This is a question that arises due to not understanding what volition is. For those who are unfamiliar with Paramattha Dhammas, ultimate realities, it is difficult to comprehend what volition means. Many people who do not know about ultimate realities mistakenly take merely intending to do something or think about something to be volition. Thinking about something or intending to give, imagining giving as volition. This question is raised by such people. Volition means the mental force present in the mind moment, mental clusters that arise in the performance of an action. Suppose a devotee desiring merit offers a bowl of food to a monk and places it in his hands. He places it in his hands. Bringing that bowl of good food belonging to the donor into the hands of the monk is the act of giving. So he's placing it on the monk's hands. If we examine how that food vessel came to be placed in the monk's hands, we can identify the volition involved. You are analyzing it, you can see there's a volition involved in it. The movement of the donor's hand towards the bowl, grasping it firmly, lifting it up, and extending it towards the monk all occur due to a force within the donor's body. If such a force did not arise internally, the donor's hand would simply remain idle without engaging in those actions. Now, imagine this donation. F1 person, okay. Now, he takes the stuff and he's placing it onto the monk's hand. All these, there should be some physical force going on. There has to be a force, a physical force. According to Theravada, this physical force of preparing and donating and so forth is given by Vayu Dhatu. Air element. Vayu Dhatu. Because of Vayu Dhatu, the moving of limbs happen. Limbs happen. Right? So that's what the Mahathera was saying. There is something, some force within the body. Now we'll see what he says. The motion of the hands in giving is driven by a certain air element in the body. This air element that causes bodily movement is explained in the Abhidhamma as the mind-produced air element, Chittaja Vayu Dhatu. And this one is produced by the Chitta consciousness. It's producing this Vayu Dhatu. And that Vayu Dhatu is making the movement. Which would be a debatable question in terms of Western philosophy, right? But that's how we explain that. Mind is producing some sort of force which has more Vayu Dhatu. That force, we are making the movement. If this mind-produced air element does not arise, the bowl of food will not reach the monk's hands. Moreover, because the body will remain because it doesn't have the physical force. Moreover, this air element that causes bodily movements does not arise on its own. This air element doesn't arise by its own. It's the mind-made air element produced by the consciousness, mind. So, does not arise on its own. It too must be generated by some force. There should be another force to generate this. There should be another force to generate. And this force makes the more bodily movements. And who is producing this force? That's the point here. That's the point. That force is the effort accompanied by the mind to bring the gift into the hands of the monk. There is another force here, mental force, accompanied with the chitta. This is what is called volition or chetana. This force is what we call chetana. Because this volition is associated with the act of giving, it is called giving volition, dana chetana. The root of the act of giving, forerunner of the deed of giving, is the volition, is the forerunner. In the act of cognition, consciousness is the forerunner. In the act of activities, actions, karma, chetana is the forerunner. The donor's hands themselves, their movement, the food, or even the air element involved in the act are not counted as the wholesome karma of giving. Now, when the Buddha defined karma, chetanaha bhikkhave kamma. Now imagine You see a person making a donation. What is the karma, actual karma? Is it the body parts? Is it the air element which causes this movement? Or is it the food that is offered? There are few participants, candidates actually. This can be called the karma, the food that is offered, or the limbs that were used to offer, or the force, the physical force due to which the wing limbs move. No, he's not going to define any of them as karma. He's going to define even the force that produced this air element. That's the point here. Then one can ask the question, which force produces the Chetana, the force? We'll come to that later. Now, this in the lineage. Now, when in the end the monk got food and he ate, that's the benefit for him, right? He got the food and he ate, okay, given to him. Now, he received it, food was donated. The food is another candidate for the karma. Hands, limbs are another candidate, because without hands, it would never be given. You need an object to offer, right? So this could be the karma. The instruments could be the karma. And the force of the instruments, Vayodhatu, could be the karma. So Vayodhatu is a big candidate actually. This is the internal force which caused this hand to move and to donate this food. Donate this food. In a physicalist point of view, if we are going to apply karma, there's no karma in physicalism. But if you are going to define karma in terms of physicalism, this Vayodhatu would be the karma here. Physically, they would not say there's a Vayodhatu going on. They may say the neurons or whatever, and the particles are acting, firing, and all this stuff. So there has to be the karma. The other one, especially if you go to the mind-brain identity theory. So it has to be a certain fiber. Dana is equal to E fiber firing, for example. Pain is C fiber firing. So I would say D fiber firing. Okay, D fiber firing is dana. So the karma has to be the physical thing or the neuron, that the firing of the neuron. That's not how dualism explains. So this physical, whatever physical activities, whether you like the Vayodhatu, whatever. Now there's a physical force going on, and the physical force moving the limbs, and food is offered. And who is the founder? Who is the production? Who produces this physical force? There's a mental element. This mental element, there's a cluster. This mental element is a cluster. There's chitta, there's phassa, there's vedana, and there's chetana, sanya. The list goes on. List goes on. Ekaggata, concentration, alobha, non-attachment. And sometimes we feel dana is non-attachment. Yeah, non-attachment should be there, otherwise you cannot donate. Right? There are a lot of mental. This is a bundle. That's why I said in the beginning, we are a bundle theory actually. It's not one element. In dualism, for the ones who are interested, we have substantial dualism, we have property dualism, and we have bundle dualism, which is very rarely discussed. Very rarely discussed. Bundle dualism. Bundle dualism, argument against, one of the arguments against bundle dualism is it doesn't match with the experience that we have, because the experience what we have is about a single self. We feel like there's a singularity here. But bundle dualism says there are many things. So how could you explain the function of a bundle with this experience? That's what the Buddha is saying. So this bundle is giving one experience. So that's why we are misled. That's why we are misled. That's the misleading point. That's what he penetrated and said. No, this one experience that we get as a self or a soul or a person or I is a combination of reality. It's a combination of reality. So that breaking that shield and going into that reality was very vital. It was very vital. Even some Western philosophers suggested this. So anyway, but Buddhism goes further, far more than that. It also says about rebirth, cause and effects after death, and also eradication of defilements and attainment. So it has a difference range after that. Anyway, this bundle theory. So it's a bundle. So out of this bundle, who is most responsible for this production? Everyone is responsible according to the Patthana. It's not only one element. Not only one element. Everyone is responsible for this production. But out of them, in such activities, especially like making a donation, speaking Dhamma, speaking harsh words. For this kind of activity, there has to be an extra force. And especially to give up, to give up, to give up the attachment. For this, there has to be a force. So force is found in every mental cluster, even in Chakku Vijnana, the force is found. But here, this force comes up significantly over the others. So its contribution to this Vayodhas is greater than any of them. Some may argue Chitta, yes, Chitta was necessary, but why this Vayodhatu happened in a way like he lifted the food and handed it over to the person, and there was such a donation, like giving up was going on. So volition was very important here. So his contribution, Chitta is producing them, there's no argument it, the entire cluster is producing, but this Chetana's involvement in shaping this force and to make a donation, not something else, not to hit them up, not to do anything, it's just to donate this thing. So that was the intention. So intention is there. What the Mahathera is saying, something is just the intention. Intention is Chetana, that's clear. That's no argument in it. Volition is Chetana. Volition, intention is Chetana. But it's not just the intent. It's not just the volition. That's what he is telling. It is also a force, an intending motive, intentional force, a volitional force. Volition, intention is mixed with it, but it's not just the intention as we think. It's a mental force that is involved. So this mental force, together with the intention, is shaping this Vayodha. It's also supporting the production, but it's happening according to the intention. So Chetana plays a huge role in this production of Chitta Vayodha. Normally, Chitta Rupas are produced by the entire mental cluster for the ones who are interested in Abhidhamma. Chitta plays a big role. Yeah, obviously, Chitta plays the biggest role in it. Chetana play a big role, especially in these activities. And Jnanangas make a big role because the Chitta, the mental cluster, gain that power because of the focus of the mind. Right? So like a laser beam that is focused at one point, focal point, would generate a lot of energy into it because all the rays are captured into one single point. So the energy, and it can heat the things and it can cut the things. So likewise, the Jnanangas would bring them together, the mentalities focused on a certain object. So that's how the mind gets the power to produce the mentality, Chitta Rupas. Since Jnanangas are not found in 10 Vijnanas, they are not producing Chitta Rupas. Anyway, so this Chetana is responsible. So when analyzing, now think how Buddha's teachings were. No, he knows that it's a cluster going on, and he differentiate, and he said, this is the karma. It's not just a casual teaching that Chetana, intention is the karma. I don't see it as it is, because Buddha has clearly said, mind is a cluster. You can see it in many sutras, especially in the Anupada Sutta, which explains about Sariputta's jhana, vipassana practice, how he contemplated the jhana. He was differentiating all the mentalities in the jhana. So Buddha taught this bundle theory. Buddha was a bundle theorist in that sense, I would say, not to give, but to make it as a disrespect. That's philosophically, objectively speaking. So now, in this bundle, he recognized Chetana is the karma. Chetana is the karma. So he had this deep understanding about the reality, and that was his opinion. This Chetana should be the karma, because out of all of them, this intention is shaping this bodily force, and that bodily force is making this activity happening. So it's not the food, it's not the hand, it's not the element or whatever the force that is doing the activity. It's not the consciousness or any other element in this bundle. It's the Chetana. It's the Chetana. Because it is the force which produces this, and also it is the intention which shapes the nature of this force, because force can flow at any direction. Force can be given and it can be used to any purpose. Normally, now think about energy. Energy can be used for any purpose. Force normally has a direction. Normally we ask force, where was it used, to which direction? That's how normally, as I know. Now imagine that if energy is there, energy, the power to activity, so it has to be directed to a certain side. So if it is a force and there is a the Chetana is directing that force to a certain particular direction. So Chetana acts as the current. That's how the teachings Chetanaham Bhikkhave Kammam Vadami is justified or explained in the Theravada doctrine. So now we look at what the Mahathera is saying. So Mahathera has not explained it in this way, but with this understanding, we'll try to read that paragraph. The penultimate paragraph, the one before the last. The donor's hands themselves, their movement, the food, or even the air element involved in the act are not counted as the wholesome karma of giving. Even the movements, okay, even the movements. What is reckoned as the wholesome karma of giving is the volition which is the forerunner. You have to correct it. Which is the forerunner of all of them. Which is the forerunner of all of them. When the Buddha declared, bhikkhus, it is volition that I call karma, chetanaham bhikkhave kammam vadami, he was referring to this mental force. You have to understand that. I hope you understood the analysis. So, chetana is the intention and it is shaping this force. A person who is unwilling to spend any material item will never have such a volition of giving arise. So, if someone is not willing to give up, that's the point. This sentence, we have to elaborate it. So giving up is very important. And we discussed on this point. Giving up needs energy, needs a force. The simile we took was, you need more force to tolerate rather than to break the rule. In the same way, giving up ownership needs some mental force. A person who is unwilling to spend any material item, what does it mean? Please underline this. This statement is what is saying giving up. This what we emphasized on. Giving up. If someone is unwilling to spend any material, so he's mentally not giving up that object, right? Will never have such a volition of giving arise. The same principle should be understood with regard to other wholesome and unwholesome volitions as well, right? As well. So, for example, sila, for instance, you truly observe it, and you have to protect it. You have to you cannot just imagine I will protect the sila and so on, but you have to follow it on adverse conditions, on situations. That's how sila is protected. So for any other karma, one can just imagine I'm cleaning the stuff and so forth. No, that effort has to be made, and physically one has to do such activities, right? So the same principle should be understood with regard to other wholesome and unwholesome volitions as well. One who does not make any effort and does not spend any material item cannot generate a volition of giving. When volition is righteously understood, this question is immediately resolved. I think it's a very nice topic, interesting topic. The ones who have knowledge in Abhidhamma would have had a better grasping on this topic. But I hope I was able to give a broader explanation on this. So even though these answers are very sort of short, if I was writing, I would have written more detail. But you can see Mahathera's every sentence makes sense. It has very deep meaning. So that's why it's very important. His books, when you are reading, if you have more knowledge, you will see more depth in it. That's why that Renuka and Mahathera's books, when we read it few years back, and when I'm reading it after few years, I see a different person or knowledge in it. And I'm pretty much sure, if I will be reading, if I continue like this, studying and teaching, and if I read it in another few years, I will see more detail. So it shows that his erudicy, and he was such a scholar that was able to concisely write things and were very accurate and would make, I would say, without making mistakes, he was able to give his idea correctly and concisely. So he was a good author, and he made sure that the books were not very large. In my opinion, in my case, it's a different thing when I explain. I always try to give it more detail. That's why my lectures are quite long, and also the writings are quite extensive. Some students do complain that the books are handouts are too long. But anyway, that's my style. So what I feel is, so these the information, the things that the answers the Mahathera has given are very precise and they contain. So we should be able to unearth those fundamentals that are based upon his answers. So I hope you enjoy the lecture. And the short answer is yes. In order to make you, we are never be able to make a donation, an actual donation, accumulate karma without giving up the property. It has to be you. So for that, you have to first own it. That's important. You have to have it, and then you are. That's the end of the lecture. Hope ready to get your answers. Question.
Now it's time for questions, and if you have any, please press the raise hand button to ask questions, please. May I proceed with the questions that has been given? Is it okay?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. The first question is when we perform a donation or any other ritual, if that donation or the ritual is not performed for the Sangha, the monastic community, does it become unsuitable or inappropriate for the monks? This is the first one, actually.
I didn't get the question. I didn't understand.
When we perform, like, when we give a donation or any other ritual,
to
the Sangha, actually. So if that donation or the ritual is not performed for the Sangha, not given to the Sangha, the monastic community, does it become unsuitable or inappropriate for the monks? Which is like පූජාව සාංගික කරලා දෙන්නේ නැතුණහම ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ. This is what it says.
It's given to the monks without making it Sangika, is it?
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's asking whether does it become unsuitable or inappropriate for the monks?
Okay, let me rephrase the question and check whether I got the point correctly. Someone is making a donation to a certain monastery, and he doesn't, or he or she doesn't dedicate it to the Sangha. He just donating to the monastery. Is it?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Sangika kara nokara deneka.
Oh, Sangika nokara, but he's giving it to the monk, right?
To Sangha, yeah. So give to
it's a donation. It's Sangika donation. It's just even, for example, if you send a pot of ghee, or for example, some medicine or chair to a certain monastery for the monks, it's a Sangika donation. You're just sending it to monks because you have the sense. Because if a ghee pot is sent to the monastery, and it belongs to all of us, because if you're not specifically giving it to a specific monk or a group of monks, it automatically becomes a Sangha's property if it is given. So if it was given to the monks in a certain monastery, it becomes the monastery's property, or something belongs to the monks of the monastery. So we have to distribute it properly. And then if there's a doubt, we can ask whether what was the person's intention. Did you specifically aimed at a certain monk, or did you specifically aimed at a group of monks? Because some monasteries, big monasteries, may have The monks were studying Abhidhamma, the monks were studying Vinaya, monks were studying Suttanta. So you can dedicate to the Suttanta monk. You can dedicate to the Abhidhamma monk. That's called offering to the Gana, offering to the group. That can be done. So, so unless he has dedicated it to the a specific person or a group of monks, then it becomes naturally Sangika. It is a Sangika thing. You don't need to say that Sangasadema and so forth. That's how we consider it. If something was sent to IIT, for instance, by someone without specifically mention anyone, we consider it a Sangika offering, and we have to follow the protocols of distributing it properly. There's no harm in it. There's no harm in it.
Which means
you can donate as you like. Donate as you like. So that's person's wish. If he wants to donate to the Sangha, if he wants to donate to the regional Sangha, if the person wants to donate it to the a single monk or a group of monks or 5-6 monks, only to the monks who have visited his village, visited his house. So he can do as it wishes, as the donor can just do as he or she wishes.
May I proceed with the second question as well? Sometimes, like, we perform, like, various type of pujas and grand light pujas, and then grand fruit pujas, and then grand charitable merit making activities. And there are different opinions in our society regarding this. Some people say that the Buddha led a very simple life, and therefore, instead of offering such grand pujas, so it would be better to, like, distribute them to the needy. And in this case, what is your opinion on this, Swaminas, according to Dhamma?
There's no opinion according to Dhamma on this. You can, if you want, if someone wants to give it to a charity, just give it to charity. If he wants to give it to the Buddha, he can give it to the Buddha. That's a normal thing. So, but saying that Buddha led a simple life, and you would not offer valuable things. That's wrong according to Dhamma. That's completely, utterly wrong. Buddha is the one. Now I can give a lot of examples on how things were offered to the Buddha. There's one story. One lady had offered one cloth to the Buddha, and it was handed over to Venerable Ananda, and that cloth was worthy 100,000 coins, if my memory was correct. Okay? 100,000 coins or something like that, something very valuable. And Venerable Ananda wanted to replace it, and 100,000 coins is not equal to 100,000 rupees in Sri Lanka, obviously. This was a different age. One coin you can live for many days. Having just a one coin means like something very, very important. A patra was 8-coin patra was considered something very valuable. Now if you take a patra these days, it's 3,000, 4,000 rupees. A good patra, I think it would be. So anyway, so the value of the money was very high. So 100,000 coins is something very huge. Now Ananda wanted to give it to me. Like, the cloth was very valuable, and to place it on a place where the Buddha would use it daily. And he checked in his Buddha's room, and he found every item which was in the room was more valuable than that cloth. Was more valuable than that cloth. Then what he did was, he had no option, but this is a very valuable cloth. He had to use it as the carpet, or just to keep it on the place where the Buddha would step, as a carpet or a cloth to keep his feet. And the lady was very elated. She was very happy, actually, because Buddha would always step on it. So now, imagine if you read the story, I'll not be able to imagine what kind of a room it would have been. It would not have been very fancy or filled with lot of objects, obviously, but it could have, Ananda would have arranged it very nicely. Ananda was responsible of his rooms and all this stuff. So, but still, necessity equipments were there. And they were very valuable. Obviously, if Bimbisara was his devotee, if Kosala was his devotee, Visakha, Manathapinika, they were giving tremendous donations to the people, and they were offering the best to the Buddha. Obviously, anyone would do that. So it doesn't mean that monks or Buddha is not allowed to accept valuable things. When Visakha was making Kubba Rama, she made it like a divine mansion, it says. 1,000 chambers. And it was like a lot of things were applied on it, a lot of paintings, and it looked like a divine mansion, it says. So therefore, that statement doesn't apply. The ones who know Dhamma, ones who know the Theravada doctrine, would never say that valuable things were never offered to him. Then the argument which comes is now food items. Is it worthless now offering such an amount of food to the Buddha? Yeah, if he was alive, he would have accepted what could suffice him. What would suffice him? But it's it's up to the donor to make an offering. Now, for example, if one monk comes to your house, for example, are you just preparing exactly what is required? No, you would prepare something much more, because in case if he likes to eat, you're actually preparing something larger. So there now many people, if a one monk is coming, people would bring food. They would bring a certain portion, another one a portion. Obviously, monk would never be able to finish all the stuff, right? So, but some would, what they would do is they keep it on the table and offer it to the Sangha, so the monk can take as whatever he likes. It doesn't mean that that the food was not donated. So when the food is donated, he has the choice to accept. Now, another good example was 500 robes were donated to Venerable Ananda. Then he accepted it. Because he would later distribute it to the other people. So therefore, sometimes monks accept things, so to give it to others, to give it to other monks. Buddha would accept and share his food with Sangha. Such things had happened. Kumara, he sent fruits to Kumara Kassapa. He said, give this to Kassapa. And the monks used to ask, to whom? There's Mahakassapa, there's various Kassapa, and he did Kumara. That's how the name even came. So when Buddha was sending fruits to Kumara Kassapa, so therefore, it's not our one can have his opinions, and if one feels okay, this is enough for the Buddha, and I would just donate it this much. And some would, if some says no, we are going to offer much larger portions. That's my will. Even if the Buddha was alive, I would prepare a bigger meal, and he would accept whatever he needs. But before that, I would make sure that I would give this as an offering. Then he would select whatever he needs. There are such offerings. Sometimes it's not necessarily that you are accepting food only to the patra. Sometimes you can just offer the whole thing and ask the monk, but they take whatever you want. Especially when we visit countries like Indonesia, that's how they do. And we accept everything, and we serve ourselves whatever we need. And the remaining they will have devotees, because we relinquish it. So even the next session, we will be discussing what can be done with the food that is offered to Buddha Pujas. We'll discuss about that. It's a very nice, interesting topic, and how it can be dealt with. So it's up to the person. It's up to the person. So if someone feels it's a waste of because always we will have a limit, right? Even the one who is offering big amount, he will also have a limit. Okay, this is much. Not I will offer just for 100,000. I cannot go for 200,000. So everyone will have a limit. So let them decide their limit. If they think if the Buddha was alive, I would make such a big donation. And like when King Kosala did, he made a very huge donation, Dasadisodana. I don't think Buddha would have monks would have eaten everything that was in the donation, because he said everything is given, everything is offered here, everything is offered. So monks took and ate whatever that was required for them. So needed for them. So it's something very personal. It's very something subjective. and it's better not to. People should not be commenting on this because it's something very personal thing. So if we are thinking like we better donate it for like to the orphanages and so forth. And the ones who are saying that even this can be something uh, like offending to some people. But if we consider about ourselves, are we just giving everything that we don't need to other people? I don't think so. I don't think so. Are we just having only that is minimum or required for us and donating every other penny to the orphanages and making donations? I don't think so. We have excess of money. If you apply, okay, as a Buddhist, you should have savings, but it's not necessary to save millions or billions or millions of rupees. Okay, so why don't we obviously think about our bank account and give away what seems to be excessive? It's not. Sometimes we reach some amounts that are obviously we also know most probably we may not be using it. So yeah, some may want to give it to children, but sometimes we may feel okay, this can be donated, but we are not doing that. We are not doing that always. There's a very nice philosophical argument, which is sort of a tricky argument, but it has a valid point. The argument is: imagine someone comes and knocks at your door, and you open the door. Maybe he was a very good friend of yours, and before he came into the house, he said, something happened when I was coming in. You asked, what was it? I was walking by a park, and there was a pond, and a small child was drowning in it. Saying, what did you do? It was not very deep. I could have jumped and picked her up, but if I did so, my shoes and clothes, newly worn clothes and shoes, would get wet. I didn't want it to happen. So what did you do? There was any other person? No, there was no other person. It is me. Then did you let her die? Yes, it was not my business. And was it too deep? No, I could have easily gone and picked her up. But I was concerned about my clothes. I didn't want to wet my clothes for someone else's life. If a friend had said this, you would feel really, really bad about it, most of the people. And most of us, some of us, would not be happy to enter him into our room, into our house. Because a person who let a child die because of his clothes and shoes, what kind of a friendship that I can have with him? He would do the same thing if I'm in trouble, right? So you would not have that feeling of having a bondage with that person. You will not have that. So then that's the common idea that most of us would have, including myself. But we are not going to apply that for an ant. We just normally walk away, and while the ants are drowning, and we don't. It's just because of our human race. I don't want to go make it more complicated philosophy issue. But anyway, so we would feel like it was something he had done. He hasn't done something inappropriate. So we would always blame him that he didn't support while he should have. So now this philosopher I forgot his name actually. This philosopher is applying this thought experiment into us. And what he's asking is, there are hundreds of thousands of millions of children are dying every year in certain continents, Africa, in Asia, in certain countries, poor countries, where there is no proper governance. Some die with malaria, some die with curable diseases, some die due to bad condition of water. Millions of children have died in the previous decade, and still keeps on going on. But if, for example, there are good donation, good charity market organizations, there are proper systems that are following, then some are really supporting, truly supporting these children, and they're saving them. They need money to function. And we do have, for example, every month, if all of us donate $10, $100, it should still be able to save at least one child. At least one child will be able to save. And we can still have our own life going on without any issue with our family life. We can donate. But we don't do that all the time. Most of us don't do that. So he's asking the question. So we let one child die, why I could have saved him. Aren't we same with the person who let the child die drowning? You may have a question. Okay, it was something very present. In the other case, those children are very far away. Those children are very far away. You don't see them. Then he asked the question again. Imagine if your best friend's son got stuck in Africa and he needs $100 to survive. And there was no time to send it. It was immediate. You had to send the transaction, and the friend has died, and you need to support him, the son. Would you do that? Most of us would do that because of our friendship. And in that scenario, the friend who came to your house didn't know that child who was dying. So he had no relationship with that child. So he just let him die. And if it was his child, he would have saved him. If it was his friend's child, he would have saved her, still saved her, like we do for our best friend's child who is lost in Africa. But for an unknown child, we won't care much about it. So the scenario is same. Someone may just argue that it's just the present mode. It's just live. No. Think about today's internet. You can just log into a website and you can see live sometimes how they are suffering and how they're eating and how they're supporting. It's just a matter of time now. And it's just a matter of click. Donates 100 rupees sometimes. And if you are 100% sure about that organization, still most of us are not interested in that. So the thing is, his argument is, the person who let the child drown and we who are not donating are equally same. That's the argument he brings. There's no difference. Yes, when you listen to this, you feel like there's something wrong here. Are we guilty for letting the children in Africa to die? Or shouldn't we? Should I actually donate one thing and save some child? Yes, if you can do, that's very nice. But we feel like there's something different here. But believe me, no one has given a solid answer to this question and refuted that argument. That argument is still valid in Western philosophy. No one had rebutted and demolished that argument. So what I want to say is, they are thinking about the food that is offered to pagodas. That's his wish. That's his wish. If someone is blaming, no, this should have been given to the charities. How to understand? Are we making our donations enough? Are we making our donations enough? Are we just, he is actually offering to the Buddha. Let him offer to the Buddha. Other person is, sometimes they're not donating even. The ones who are donating, don't get offended by this because I'm not referring to you all. Some people are not doing it. So if someone is blaming to the monk people who are making the donations, they should also blame the ones who are not donating. They do the same thing. Because they have money, but they're not donating, then they should be blaming the other people, ones who are not donating even. So the logic, I hope I understand this point. Both the cases, they could have given to the children, and both of them are not giving. One is giving to the Buddha and one is not giving, and he's using for his own self. So then one can argue, since he is giving, he would have used that to the other person. So that's his personal choice in the end. That's his personal choice. We do many such things. We do buy grocery sometimes. We do eat certain food. We are not necessary for. And that should have given to a beggar. We keep on arguing like that. There's ample of arguments that we can bring. And this discussion would keep on going. And that Western philosopher would triumph on this. His argument will come again and again, and it would seems to be that then we are not able to eat any fruit that is not healthy to us, because we are harming ourselves, we are just satisfying ourselves. Should have donated it because I'm full. I had my breakfast, I had my lunch, and that's enough for me. Why it's extra? Should given to a child who is struggling in the streets. If we apply that same argument for offering the Buddha, the food that is offered to the Buddha, and some consider which is a waste, and this, everyone who is not eating more than what they need are at risk of being accused. And everyone who is keeping money more than what they need and the children need are at the risk of being accused. So therefore, this argument, I don't appreciate much. So in my opinion, if someone asks, Bhante, would you, there's no such a, in my opinion, I would not say it's good and this is good and this is bad. That's not the way I take it. For example, if someone asks me, you have this much of requisites equivalent to this amount, would you make a Buddha puja to Mahacheti, or would you give some support to the monks? That's my personal choice. That's my personal choice. And I'm not going to apply. I may sometimes, most of the occasions, I may donate it to my monks, students, or some monks who are in need of that. But doing so, I'm not going to say, don't donate to Mahacheti, donate to monks, they are in need of it. No, I'm not going to say that, because it's a personal preference, it's a personal choice. It's a personal choice. Buddha had asked us to respect this very, very strongly. For example, if someone is going to donate a certain item to the Sangha, we are not supposed to direct it to another Sangha or to a Chetya. Even if someone is going to donate something to a dog, we are not supposed to direct it to another dog that we prefer. Or this dog has more food. No, that dog is starving. Give it to him. If he was going to offer it to that dog, and if he direct that food to that other dog, it's an offense to us. It's an offense. We are not supposed to do that. We are not supposed to do that. So, therefore, we can have a discussion and talk about that. That's a different case. If someone is willing to offer to some person, we are not supposed to direct it to another person. So what does the Buddha have said? He has respected the personal opinion, preference. Someone is offering to a certain monk or a group of monks to a certain monastery, that's their preference. We can say, also consider about other monks, also consider other monasteries. Think about the monastery in your village. But we should not be blaming them for offering someone they prefer, because when Kosala asked, King Kosala asked, to whom should we give? Buddha very clearly, Buddha said, give to ones with whom you are pleased with. Yatta chittang pasidati tatta dhatabba. Give to the people with whom you are pleased with. So, that's my answer to this. I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad, which one is good or bad. This is how I take this question.
So, do we have still time, or can I?
Are there questions? More questions?
Yeah. Yes, now
Okay,
two
fine.
questions. I'll proceed with one. The Blessed One has taught, Manapadai labante manapante, and meaning what is given with a good intention will result in receiving what is good. And in that case, Minhasa, when it is said what is given with good intention, does it mean the giver's preferred offering, or does it refer to what the recipient prefers? Or furthermore,
No, no.
we give something willingly, but the recipient is unwillingly to accept it, and would the donation still have the great merit, Swaminas?
Manapadayi labate manapang. That means you give what you like, not what the recipient likes. Manapadayi labate manapang. I think Mr. actually, the Seti Ugga was, if my memory was correct, Ugga was famous for this, and Buddha praised him of this. He gives whatever he likes. For example, okay, someone likes to eat noodles, he offers noodles. Someone likes to eat certain curry, he offers that curry. Another donation is, you ask the preference of the monk and offer that. That's another donation. That's what Matika Mata did. He checked everyone's mind and offered what they want. That's a different style of a donation. Manapadana means not what the recipient needs, not what is pleasant to the recipient. It's what is pleasant to the donor. You may feel like it's something selfish. No, Buddha has praised it. You are going to get as a result what you prefer in the samsara. That's the point here. So anyway, Manapadayila, but sometimes we do that. Even I myself sometimes have done. Yeah, I think I have done that because what I like, I donate sometimes. Not with the expectation of gaining something, but that makes it happy. Like if I'm enjoying it, I would be happy to see someone else also enjoying. So time to time, it's good to give Manapadana. And it's something, it gives a different satisfaction and flavor and a happiness to your mind. Sometimes, yeah, people like to offer what the monks like. That's appreciable and praiseworthy, and it's very nice because monks normally don't get whatever they want. They are just receiving what people are giving. And time to time, it's also good to give things that you like. Manapadayi labate manapa. And yeah, last part I missed now. I forgot the last part of the question.
The recipient is unwilling to accept it, and would the donation still have the great merit?
So if the recipient is unwilling to accept, your donation will give the same results. You mean if the recipient declines the donation, then the donation has not happened, right? If the recipient haven't, for example, if someone is offering me something and I just said enough, I said no, then the donation has not happened. So in that case, if the recipient rejects the donation, then the donation has not happened. So, and if the recipient accepts it without, no, the next point is another very interesting point is, normally something that we prefer very much is agreeable to most of the people. That's another philosophy here. Like Ugga's favorite food would not have been disgusted by most of the monks. I think they're delicious to all of the monks. So normally, it's something which is delicious. It's commonly held delicious, but it differs. I have my experience when I went to Burma. Some food that they prefer, I would not prefer. And for them, our food that we prefer were not pleasing to them. So it can happen, especially in this globalized, like in this world, it can happen. I think people who are in overseas would have experienced that. Therefore, sometimes but if something is very, very delicious, commonly people in the world, most of the people would appreciate that, something very delicious. And so giving something that you like would make them happy in most of the cases. But in some cases, in some instances, that may not be the case. But even in such instances, if the recipient was not happy about it, but if he didn't accept, if he rejects it, we should not be forcing him to take it. That's another thing. if you feel like he's just rejecting because he has less desire, then we can force it. Please accept it for out of compassion towards me. But if he really rejects it because he doesn't like, then we should not be forcing on that. And but even if he doesn't like it, but he accepts it happily, but still you will get the merit. Still you will get the merit. So no need to worry about that. And if you are giving it with your pure mind, that would be nice. And to make it more clear, one can ask, okay, I'm willing to give a thing, a food that I like. One day, would you be able to eat it, or would you like it? Okay, no problem. Then happily you can do it. So if you are a bit concerned about your manapadana, that certain food can be like, for example, okay, take an example, durian. So some people love it, or some people hate it. Okay. So now if someone who wants to give manapadana durian, it's a very strange food. It's a very strange food. So some manapadana, very tasty cakes and all, most of the people would like it. Some may not like it because of health concern. There's a different case. But some food are like in the border. The very good example is durian. So if some would love it and some would hate it. So if someone is giving, he likes durian and he's giving it to someone who cannot bear that smell, then that's not I don't appreciate that. In such a case, if you know that this can go either way, yes, better to check it first and make the donation. So in such a case, but if it is a very pleasant thing, now imagine a very comfortable sheet or mattress, so a chair or something, and something a very nice robe. Most of it will be pleasant, pleasing for most of them. And it doesn't mean that monks now, for example, a monk who is practicing Bhutanga may not like to accept it. It's not because he doesn't like it, it's because he is not using it. That's a different case. So there can be many reasons for rejection or not unwilling to accept it. So take it as a I just gave some insights on it. Manapadana is always appreciated.
Okay, Swaminathan, that's all for today. We have one, so we can finish it off now.
You have one question, is it?
There is one, but then do we have time? Or like we can proceed
just
to
keep it.
the next
Otherwise,
time.
it's if you can keep it for the next time, yeah, then perfect.
Okay, Swaminathan. Yes.
Good. So yeah, that's the end of this session. And today's Dhamma sermon is devotedly sponsored by Mr. Miran Tharindu Munasinghe, residing in Malaysia. And the primary purpose of this meritorious offering is to seek success in business endeavors and to share merit with his parents and all family members. So I sincerely, wholeheartedly wish Mr. Miran Tharindu Munasinghe that all his efforts in his work, businesses, may all they be successful, and may he be his family members and the parents be happy with all these merits, and may he achieve all his goals as he wishes. May he be healthy to strive for his success. And may all divine beings who rejoice in merit partake in this offering. And may this merit be dedicated to the Venerable Dhamma preacher and all esteemed monks who uphold the spread the Dhamma, Sadhu. Special merits are also dedicated to Mr. Vajira Ranasinghe, residing in Switzerland, for providing the Zoom app for this Dhamma sermon. May these merits also be transferred to the beloved father of Mr. Vajira Ranasinghe, who passed away. Yes, and we are conducting all these sessions on the platform provided by Mr. Vajira Ranasinghe. So may he get all the merits and have good deep Dhamma knowledge, and also find success in his all mundane and spiritual activities. And may his father, the deceased father, may rejoice on his son's merits and may be happy the sons are finally attaining liberation. May this merit be shared with everyone who has gathered today to listen to the Dhamma sermon. Yes, and special merits should be given to the organizers, Mrs. Udyani Unantana and Vishwa Unantana, and for organizing this relentlessly and creating this platform that so many could listen to the Dhamma, and may all of their wishes be soon fulfilled and successful, and may they attain Nibbana soon. and the ones who are doing the recording and broadcasting, Mr. Nikesh, and other is Mr. Prasad and Dhananjay. May all of them be also have this due to these merits, may all of them be successful in their lives, and also everyone who listen to the Dhamma talk, and may all of you be happy in this very life's coming, and also attain the liberation. So all the devas who listen to this talk, especially the ones who are residing in this monastery, and also the ones who are perfecting the sasana and the world, may they redemption this merit, and may they may their many divine pleasures get enhanced, and finally may they attain the final liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idang wo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang wo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang wo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Akasattha ca bhummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sambuddha sasana. Akasattha ca bhummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sambuddha desanang. Akasattha ca bhummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sambuddha savakang chirang rakkantu tang sada. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo satan samagamo hoto yaga nibbana pattiga. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo satan samagamo hoto yaga nibbana pattiga. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo satan samagamo hoto yaga nibbana pattiga. Idam me punya kammang asavakkaya mahang hoto. Idam me punya kammang asavakkaya mahang hoto. Idam me punya kammang asavakkaya mahang hoto. Sabba dukkha vimuttatu.
Venerable Bhante, with your permission, we now dedicate our merits. Today we commence the seventh Dhamma sermon series. First and foremost, we extend our sincere merit dedication to the Most Venerable Thera, who so graciously shared the most profound teachings of the Buddha in a manner that we could truly comprehend. May the merits we accumulated be shared with the Venerable Thera, and by the power of Supreme Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, may the Venerable Thera be free from suffering, enjoy good health, be blessed with the wisdom to attain Supreme Sri Saddhamma. Sadhu, 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 Venerable Bhante, with your permission, we now pay our deepest respect. Okasa Vandami Bhante, Maya Katam Samina Punyang, Samina Anumoditabbang, Samina Katam Punyam Mayanda Tabbang. Sadhu sadhu anumodami okasa dwaratena katan sabbang achyang kamatame bante okasa kamami bante tutiyampi okasa kamami bante tatiyampi okasa kamami bante. Sadhu sadhu sadhu. Triple Gem bless you, Swaminasa.
Silavantam gunavantam punyakettam anuntaram dullabena maya labdham passitum vanditum varam. Sariputtadi Theranam Agatam Patipatiya Saddha Silam Dayavasam Buddha Puttam Namah